Hello, everybody. Welcome into the Apples and Genos Fantasy Hockey Podcast. My name is Nate Niblink. I'm the creator of Apples and Genos, originator of the Zero G Draft Strategy. And in this podcast, I'm going to go over the most puzzling players league wide as submitted by the Apples and Genos Discord server. Let's get it. All right, welcome on in, everyone. Another week of fantasy hockey is upon us. Getting to the end of this thing. A lot of people are in their playoffs. I've seen multiple people reaching out and saying, "Hey, the first week of my playoffs this week." So, yeah, it's upon us. For a lot of people, playoffs start next week. For some people, it doesn't start till week 23. We got some time for some people, but we're definitely in crunch season no matter what. So, love to see the people in here. We got another solid group of players to talk through here today. Definitely some still, 20 weeks into the season. You'd think we'd have this figured out, right? But definitely there are still some very puzzling players league wide, no doubt about it. So, we will get into all of that, no question. I'm going to try to make sure that we get to as many players as humanly possible here. But yeah, we already got tons of comments, so I think I may as well start there. Right off the top, Darpa Chief, 10 team keeper league. Can't speak already. It's the very first question. Oh boy. By week 22, currently have two of my defense injured. Quinn Hughes, Dougie Hamilton, feel your pain there. Picked up Luke Hughes in the meantime, but should I drop him and spend a high pick on Caulfield and only run 4D, assuming Hughes is back? Love you guys. Keep crushing it. Thanks for that. It's a good question. I really am struggling myself to figure out what is going to happen with Quinn Hughes here because it does really feel like it could go two ways. That, if the Canucks struggle, then they might just shut down Quinn Hughes for the rest of the year. But if he can influence them getting into the playoffs, you would think that that's still a goal that they want to achieve this year, even though they did, entertain selling off some pieces like Brock Besser. Yeah, it's still up in the air for me a little bit. But yeah, I think in your specific case, with the injuries that you have, Luke Hughes will cover some of Hamilton's production, obviously not all of it. I don't mind running only 4D, and I also don't mind picking up Cole Caulfield. Good playoff schedule there. I should double check. I don't remember specifically what the Montreal playoff schedule is for the specific weeks. You said you have a bye week 23, week 22 rather, so week 24, 23 and 24. Yeah, so 4 games, 2 off nights, 4 games, 1 off night. So you're getting 8 games out of Cole Caulfield in your playoffs. That does feel pretty good. Yeah, I don't mind that strategy to go out and acquire. I think Luke Hughes can be solid, but definitely Cole Caulfield is a much bigger improvement, and I don't mind running 4D, especially if you're getting guys with off nights. If you're pretty set for off nights for weeks 23 and 24, and with the bye, you would hope you'd be able to kind of set yourself up to be okay that way. Then running 4D and having optimized forwards is definitely a real possibility. So I like that for you. CG, 12 team points, weekly locks, off nights don't matter. Playoffs weeks 23 through 25 have Verhaeghe, keep him or drop for one of these. Stamkos, Norris, Cousins, Nyes, or Fantilli. That's a good question. Weeks 23 through 25, the Nashville schedule isn't quite as good. Buffalo's schedule is solid. Only 3 off nights, but they do play 13 times. You said off nights don't matter, so 13 times is the most of any team. Cousins in Ottawa. Ottawa also plays 13 times. Nyes in Toronto plays 12 times. Fantilli in Columbus plays also 13 times. Interesting question. I guess so. If I'm just rating them like for their performance tomorrow, then I think I would go Fantilli. I mean, it's easy to say when he's coming off a hat trick. But yeah, given the timeline that you're looking at here, you're 2 weeks ahead of where we're at now. When is Monahan coming back? Does he influence Fantilli? There is some uncertainty there. I personally think that Fantilli has played so well that they would be crazy to try to take him off the off the top power play, off the top line. But obviously Monahan had really good success between Marchenko and Voronkov as well. So it wouldn't be the most shocking thing, I guess, if Monahan did kind of take over that 1C role once again when he returns. I still think that Fantilli has the highest upside here. Um, Basically, I'm trying to decide between Stamkos, Nyes, or Fantilli. Personally, I don't think Norris or Cousins have the same kind of upside as those guys do. Personally, that's just from what I'm seeing with these players. But yeah, Stamkos and Nyes have one less game played, and I think Fantilli, at this exact moment in time, is probably a better player than those guys anyway for fantasy purposes. Um, I think I would go with Fantilli. I think I'd swing for the fences, to be honest with you. I think that he's going to get minutes. He might get a little less minutes, but yeah, obviously it hasn't been a terrific year for Stamkos. Nyes has had a great year, but one less game played in those weeks. And yeah, it's just not an ideal scenario. He also only plays 2 games in week 24, so it's not as evenly spread out. That might be something that you might want to take into consideration there, where he's actually kind of a net negative in week 24. Give me Fantilli. Final answer. Chris Corbin says Nate is the best. Appreciate you. That one we already saw. Dynasty Dave, hashtag 0G. Good to see you. CG says best fantasy content out there. Appreciate that. E says Ekblad, ... CG says Ekbad. Ekbad. There it is. Yeah. If you haven't heard, yeah, Aaron Ekblad suspended for 20 games for violating the performance enhancing substances policy of the NHL. He released a statement. It sounds like he took something without checking with the team doctors, and it was on the banned list. Don't really know any more than that, but it sounds like it was a mistake and not really he was trying to, actually take PEDs. But either way, it definitely, I mean, he's not going to play for fantasy purposes again for the rest of the year. So if you have Ekblad, you drop him immediately. And it also probably means that Seth Jones goes on the top power play immediately. So definitely fantasy relevance in that regard. E asks, Kuzmenko, a look, top line, top power play. Yeah, so Kuzmenko went to LA and immediately went on. Yeah, I don't even know if this is really the top line there in LA anymore, but with Kopitar and Kempe at even strength and on the top power play with Kopitar, Fiala, and Kempe, Drew Doughty on the back end still. Yeah, I mean, it's still a lot of minutes and top power play, so for sure you should be interested in what yeah, Kuzmenko might be able to bring to your team. Again, Los Angeles, not the greatest schedule this week. 3 games, 0 off nights, but next week they play 4 games, 2 off nights. The week after that, 4 games, 1 off night, and then week 24, it's only 3 games, 0 off nights. So definitely not going to hurt you and might be pretty helpful. So especially in anything deeper than a 12 team, that's when he really starts to shine. Sebastian asks, hey Nate, do you prefer Nichushkin or Verhaeghe for the rest of the season? I'm going to go Nichushkin here. It did come out today that Verhaeghe is dealing with some sort of minor nagging injury, and I wonder if that might be part of the reason they haven't been giving him, the full complement of minutes and kind of taking him off the top power play at times. Yeah, I could find the exact tweet back, but there was basically they were saying that he's just working through something, playing through something. Obviously, if it was super significant, they'd probably shut him down for a bit, try to get him right for the playoffs. It doesn't sound like it's anything too crazy, but they're just kind of they have the luxury with being how good Florida is that they can kind of just manage his minutes and be okay with that. So yeah, I would go Nichushkin. I mean, again, a guy who just is coming off a hat trick, pretty easy to go that route, but did get on top power play, is staying there as of the lines released today here on Monday. So yeah, I'm going Nichushkin there, no doubt at the moment. CG says like and subscribe. I would appreciate that. Thank you for suggesting it, CG. Also agrees, no doubt, Nichushkin. Taylor asks, replace McMichael with any of these players with a better schedule. Giroux, Byfield, Norris, Cousins, Marchment, Moore, Zetterlund, hits, blocks, power play points, league. It's a good question. I'm going to assume, just based on you saying that it's a better schedule, that you're talking about weeks 22 through 24 for the playoffs here. Washington does have a great schedule in week 24, but you have to obviously get there for that to matter. I'm kind of interested. I'm interested in a few of these guys. Byfield and Norris are sticking out to me off the top. Zetterlund could get there, but he's playing this first game for Ottawa on the fourth line. I would imagine that he eventually gets a chance to get a look in the top six, but at least as of now, he's starting on the fourth line. So that's obviously not a great look. I have some love for Norris. I haven't actually checked to see if he's been throwing the body around. He has in the past put up a decent amount of hits. Yeah, he's been actually throwing a lot of hits over the course of the season. So I like Norris for that as well. And Norris is going straight on the top power play. I think Josh Norris might be your pick here. Good schedule for Buffalo in the playoffs, the early part of the playoffs as well. So weeks 22, they play 4 games, 2 off night. 4 games, 2 off nights. Week 23, 4 games, 1 off night, and then week 24, assuming you get there, 3 games, 1 off night. So, yeah, I think Norris would be the look there. Chris Corbin, do I pick McCann back up? Yeah, maybe. Seattle doesn't have a great schedule, a good schedule this week. So if you need somebody this week, McCann's a great option for this week, particularly. But yeah, I've always liked McCann, and I'll continue to ring that bell. LOL Max O, is Horvat a streamer now? Worth dropping for a streaming spot? Yeah, I think he's very solidly in streaming range. The Islanders play 3 games, 2 off nights this week. The off nights are at the end of the week here. Next week, it's 3 games, 0 off nights before their schedule starts to get good again, weeks 23 and 24. So, yeah, I have Horvat in a place, and I'm definitely contemplating dropping him probably after this week because I do need those off nights this particular week. But the next week, if I don't get a buy in that league, then I'll probably be dropping him at that point. Justin H., how are we feeling about Cooley? I'm actually curious to see what Logan Cooley has been looking like under the hood. He's got 1 goal, 3 points in his last 5 games, 18 minutes a night. 336 shots per 60, 304 individual scoring chances, 4 per 60. Better in the on ice stuff, but still not great. For some reason, oh, there we go. Did it come through? For some reason, my season stats aren't counting right now. That's too bad. Yeah, either way, I think that Logan Cooley is just kind of coasting a bit. It's hard to say when a guy comes back from injury and then the metrics don't kind of go back to where they were. You're always kind of left wondering if he's still dealing with something, if he's playing through something a little bit. That's definitely within the realm of possibility. And so I don't want to discount that as a possibility. I also don't want to overrate it and then, miss out on the potential of Logan Cooley being really good because he is a terrific player. So, yeah, I don't want to get caught between 2 different things there, but it does seem like there's a chance at least that he might not hit the heights that we had hoped. That being said, Utah, good schedule upcoming. They play 4 games, 4 off nights this week, 3 games, 0 off nights next week, but then 4 games, 3 off nights in week 23. So there's some good schedule stuff happening around there for the next little bit. So it's definitely a player that should be rostered this week at the very least, and then maybe reevaluate for next week if nothing happens this week, but definitely a player that has to be on a roster this week. Justin Reed, need a 0G goalie for playoffs starting next week. I have Kemper, best option between Vejmelka, Yari, Talbot, Urson, Dostal, and Knight. It's a good question. I like Vejmelka by far the most out of the group you mentioned there. I think he's going to get a lot of starts. Obviously, Ingram out for a while now, indefinitely with the player assistance program. And so I think that Vejmelka gets a lot of starts, and they're going to lean on him a lot. So I think that's the number one for sure. I do also have some love for Dostal, and I do also have some love for Knight. Knight especially will get the off nights in weeks 23 and 24. But for now, I would go with Vejmelka, especially if he's your second goalie. PB Stars, given Buffalo's playoff schedule weeks 22 to 23, would you take Zucker over McTavish? Worth it for the extra 2 games? Um, that's a good question. Zucker did go straight back to the top power play in practice today, so that's a good sign for him for sure. I think I would. McTavish is running hot right now, and it looks pretty good under the hood. Tons of minutes. All that looks pretty good. But I think at least, so if you look at it, week 22, Buffalo goes 4 games, 2 off nights. Anaheim goes 3 games, 1 off night. Then the following week, Buffalo goes 4 games, 1 off night, and Anaheim goes 3 games, but all 3 are on off nights. So one thing you could look at, if you need the off nights more in week 23, then you could potentially get Zucker's 4 games for week 22 and switch back to McTavish for week 23, potentially, if that ends up netting you more games played. Yeah, I think at the very least, I would go with Zucker for week 22, though. Steezy, do you know if Makema Dillon has been getting power play 1 time in San Jose? Will he surpass the other options for rest of season if they drop the 5-4 power play? Asking as a reeling season-long Wallman haver. So I mean, Wallman hasn't been bad in Edmonton, first off, so it might be a player that you might want to hang on to, at least until we see how things shake out when Ekholm is back in the lineup. It was a good debut, at the very least, for Wallman there. Makema Dillon has not been getting power play 1. They've been running this 5-forward power play. Alexander Wenberg has been the 5th man in on that. When they have run, like the second unit has had both Liljegren and Makema Dillon on it, so yeah, it could be Makema Dillon if they go with a defenseman on the back end for the last bit of the season, but it could also be Liljegren. So at this point, Makema Dillon is not worth picking up. CG, so definitely don't keep Verhaeghe then. Going back to the previous question up above, yeah, I think where we landed was to drop Verhaeghe. Frown face from Chris. And Clixie asks, you think Yossi is done given Nashville's season? I was looking to pick up Hayton for the 4 off nights, but don't want to waste an ad in a close week. Yeah, I think your guess is probably as good as mine there. Nashville is definitely not playing for anything, so that doesn't give you a lot of hope. But by the same token, Yossi is the captain of the team. If he can play, he might want to be there with the team. Yeah, I kind of am split down the middle on it. I don't really feel like I have a good read on the situation. I feel like I'd be doing you a disservice if I tried to, come to a conclusive take on it. I think it's a move you can make this week if you need, if you're still fighting for, if you're still fighting to get into the playoffs, then maybe it is a move worth making. If it's only, do I get the buy or not? Maybe it's not worth making because Yossi is so talented. But yeah, that's a tough place to be. And I don't envy you that situation. I think for myself, it would really depend on what is at stake this week. Stonks, Valerie, Snowman, Nichushkin, or Zachary, Silverspoon, Hyman, Nichushkin back on power play 1. Yeah, the one thing I want to remind everybody is that the power play 1 in Colorado is going to change again as soon as like the next game or 2 games later. So I feel like every time a new player gets on the power play 1 in Colorado, we immediately assume that this is the way it's going to be for the rest of the season, and it never is. So I just want to remind everybody that this will cycle through again. They now have Nelson, they now have Nichushkin, they now have Lehkonen, they now have Drouin. All 4 of these guys will cycle through those 2 spots on the power play for the rest of the season, I think. Yeah, I don't think you can really say conclusively one way or another somebody's going to stay there. So take that into account. I think, if you're talking about playoff schedules, maybe that factors into it for you. Edmonton has a pretty terrible playoff schedule, 9 games, 1 off night, and Colorado's is a little better, 10 games, 3 off nights, weeks 22 through 24. If you go in weeks 23 through 25, Edmonton goes 12 games, 6 off nights, and Colorado is 11-2. So it actually flip-flops depending on when your playoffs are. So maybe you just kind of draw the tie or make the decision just based on whatever your playoff schedule is. That might be the best scenario there. Hello, Max. So what are we doing to Celebrini next week? Plays on all busy days. Drop. This is really dependent for me on what your situation is. Yeah, he plays on all busy days this week as well. and it's only 2 games played next week. So yeah, if you're in your playoffs and it's all at stake, then I think you have to consider Celebrini as a potential drop. I don't want to, obviously, because he's been very productive, but I think you have to consider it if he's the lowest guy on your lineup. If he's not making your lineup on those busy days, then that's definitely a player you have to consider. Josh Mayer, question 1. Lehkonen is now line 1 / power play 2. Keep or drop now that he's off power play 1. So let's start with that one. This is going to be really league dependent for me. 12 team is probably right on the line there. Depends a little bit on your point setup or if you're in categories. Depends on that. I think it's worth keeping as long as he's on the line 1. As long as he's line 1 and or power play 1, you probably want to keep him. I guess final answer. Question 2, Jarvis got bumped to line 3, but still power play 1. Drop altogether or drop for Stankoven? I still would like to hold Jarvis there. I just think he's plenty talented. He can score at least some points from line 3, and it's Rod Brind'Amour, so this is going to change again as soon as this week. I don't expect that they've solved everything as far as how they're going to deploy the lineup for the rest of the season, just based on the Stankoven acquisition. I don't think that's how this works, so definitely I would hold on to Jarvis. Question 3, Boone Jenner now line 2 and power play 2 drop altogether or drop for Kent Johnson, Adam Fantilli, or Dmitry Voronkov. Yeah, I'd much rather have Fantilli there. Steve Larini, Bjorkstrand or Cousins for playoffs. Bjorkstrand has better week 1 playoffs, but Cousins gets some more games played weeks 2 and 3. I would rather take Bjorkstrand right now and figure it out later on. Yeah, power play 1 for Bjorkstrand as of the last update, and so I'm into that. I think he should be picked up and rostered for if you're playing in week 22. That definitely makes some sense to me. Josh, question 4. Hagel's now line 2, power play 2. Mad because I traded Gensel a few weeks ago. Drop or add Bjorkstrand? I would still take Hagel over Bjorkstrand, and in that case. He's going to play more minutes. Question 5. Kempe has been crap. Drop or keep or pick up a different King player? That really depends. I don't know. That depends so much on which Kings players are there, but probably not. Probably you're keeping Kempe. Question 6, Lacombe? Question mark. Yeah, he exists. He's a player. Chris Corbin is laughing. Josh got a list. Definitely. Question 7, Quinn Hughes, Roman Josi, Kirill Kaprizov, only 2 IR spots. Keep all 3 or time to let go because they won't be back till April. Great question. Really tough in that spot. So again, it depends how badly you need to win this week, how badly you need to win next week. If you're in a situation where you've locked up your bye and your bye is week 22, then I would hold them. Obviously, it's not actually hurting you to keep them. If you absolutely have to win this week, you need to pull out all the stops. You need to let one go. I would probably drop. Oh gosh, this is tough. I'd probably drop Josi there, but it doesn't feel good. Question 8, riding Allmark and Sorokin as my goalies. Not a lot of number 1 goalie starters available. Aiden Hill, Joseph Wall, Petr Mrazek, and Thatcher Demko are available, worth picking up. I don't mind Aiden Hill there, but definitely not the others. Funny enough, relevant to many players. I have Hardy Face from Josh. Let's cross them streams. All right. Here we go. Back to Jordan. Hey, Nate, are there any Calgary players that interest you if you had to stream from them, or are they just team to avoid? 12 team standard Yahoo points, no plus minus. There's not a lot that are streamer level in Calgary, right? I think that's the toughest part of their situation right now is, you have like Kadri, but Kadri's above the line to roster in many leagues. Kadri's at 63% on Yahoo. Huberdeau's at 43%. I guess that's the player you would look at, but he hasn't been particularly hot. He hasn't scored in 6 games, only 3 assists in that time, had 3 zero-shot games in that time. But the minutes are still there, so that's at least an option. Blake Coleman's underlying metrics have come back up as of late, so I am a little bit interested in Blake Coleman. Joel Farabee has been actually doing some stuff as of late. He's got a goal in back-to-back games here. So that's an option as well. I don't really love the options, to be honest with you. Mostly I'm thinking they're a team to avoid. Here we go. E, do you think Yari gets more run down the stretch, 0G? it's at least possible. It really depends on how he plays and how Nedeljkovic plays rest of season. So, um, yeah, I think it's going to be game to game. They'll probably split it up until one starts to play well and one starts to play terribly, which probably means that they'll both play pretty terribly and they'll just keep going back to back. BB Stars says thanks, and we're back. All right, we got to get into the list here. Top of the list, Carter Verhaeghe. 2 goals in his last 5, just over 17 minutes average time on ice. Still doing the thing, 34 shots per 60, 66th individual scoring chances 4 per 60, 17th Corsi 4 per 60, and 15th in on-ice scoring chances 4 per 60. It's pretty good stuff, to be honest with you. Verhaeghe has been playing on the top line, but off the top power play, and that's kind of a tough pill to swallow. I mean, top line is still something. That's not a bad place to be, but when Mackie Samoskevich is getting top power play over you, that feels bad for Carter Verhaeghe rosterers. I think that, yeah, what I said before still stands. I think Verhaeghe is dealing with a little bit of an injury, and maybe they're just viewing this as an opportunity to get Samoskevich some good playing time. It's working. Samoskevich is playing incredibly well. Now Marchand is in the mix as well, and it sounds like he's going to be back sooner than previously believed. So I think that he's going to probably be in the mix there as well. So it wouldn't surprise me at all if Verhaeghe actually doesn't get on top power play for the rest of the season. That being said, I think he's still good enough to be rostered in a lot of leagues, 12-team leagues and anything deeper. But it's definitely at a reduced efficacy level, maybe something a little bit more like what he's done on the season long. So, yeah, I think it's a bit of a tough pill to swallow, but I think Verhaeghe's still relevant for fantasy. It's just he might be a little bit more on the line, and they don't have the most interesting playoff schedule. Florida, that is. Week 23, they only play 2 games. Week 22, they only play 3 games with 1 off night. Well, it's not a great playoff schedule there for Carter Verhaeghe rosters, so you're well within your rights to drop him if you need to. Valery Nichushkin next up. He's got 4 goals, 6 points in his last 5, over 18 minutes average time on ice, 25th shots per 60, 20th individual scoring chances, 4 per 60. As we mentioned, Nichushkin on power play 1 seemed to really fit with Nelson in that game against the Leafs. They were buzzing together, so really good early returns on that pairing. I'm kind of into Nichushkin as a point per game player rest of season. He's probably going to need power play 1 to make that happen. But I think that it's at least within the range of outcomes that he's just a straight point per game player rest of season, and I'm pretty into it. Adam Fantilli, also 4 goals, 2 assists, 6 points in his last 5, over 18 minutes, average time on ice, 114th in shots per 60, but 16th in individual scoring chances, 4 per 60. That's why we look at it. Sometimes you get these differences, and you wouldn't know just looking at the shots. 92nd in Corsi, 4 per 60, 55th in on-ice scoring chances, 4 per 60. Fantilli's been absolutely incredible. I am starting to believe that because he is like viewed as the franchise center, right? Like no one is viewing Sean Monahan as a franchise center. Fantilli's been doing the thing as the top guy there for so long now, and Columbus still well within this race. They're very kind of neck and neck for the wild card spot there, and Fantilli has been at the forefront of all that. I really think that this is a scenario where they'd be a little bit crazy to not keep going with Fantilli as the number 1 center when Monahan is back, at least at the start. And, if he does slow down at that point, then, there might be a change at that point. But at least for the first bit, I think that Fantilli has played well enough that this is his job to lose at this point. Timo Meier, 2 goals, 1 assist, 3 points in his last 5, 18 minutes average time on ice, 49 shots per 60, 47th individual scoring chances, 4 per 60, 107 Corsi, 4 per 60, 38th in on-ice scoring chances, 4 per 60. This is a spot where, with the injuries to the Devils, Timo Meier is finally on the top power play unit. He's also on, I guess what you would call the top line. Hischier and Nason, his line mates. Bratt is on the other line with Mercer and Palat. But yeah, it's a spot where Timo Meier should get more run, should get more minutes, but also getting that power play time is crucial and should actually be kind of a trigger man on that power play with Jack Hughes and Dougie Hamilton out of the picture, who are both big time shooters. So I think that Meyer is in store for a pretty good end to the season here. I'm a little bit excited about it. I'm trying to, hold down my excitement a little bit here, but week 22, 3 games, 1 off night. Week 23, 4 games, 3 off nights, and then the final week, only 2 games with 1 off night if you're in playoffs or weeks 22 through 24. It's not a great playoff schedule past week 23, so maybe once you get past that point, you are thinking about dropping him again. But at least for this stretch here, I'm going to be pretty excited about having Timo Meyer on my rosters. Seth Jones, 3 games since joining the Florida Panthers. No points, 21 minutes a night, 12th in shots per 60, 47th individual scoring chances for per 60, 40th Corsi for per 60, and 66th in on-ice scoring chances for per 60. With Ekblad out of the picture, I think Jones gets a big bump. It would make the most sense to me that he goes up and plays with Forsling on the top pair and they reunite the second pair that they had before of Mikkola and Kulikov. So I think that Seth Jones gets a big bump with Ekblad out for the rest of the season. He was already 12th in shots per 60, as I mentioned, over these 3 games. I think that only goes up. He gets power play time, and you're loving life with Seth Jones rest of season. Dmitry Voronkov, 1 goal, 2 assists, 3 points in his last 5, 16.5 minutes average time on ice, 300th in shots per 60, 121 individual scoring chances for per 60, 131 Corsi for per 60, and 102 scoring chances for per 60. Columbus doesn't have the greatest schedule. This week they're 3 games, 0 off nights. Next week, 3 games, 2 off nights. The week after that, 3 games, 2 off nights. Week 24, 4 games, 1 off night. Week 25, 6 games, 1 off night. So it's not like an incredible schedule that we're looking at here. It's not bad. A couple of off nights in weeks 22 and 23. But yeah, Voronkov is kind of in an in-between place. Some of his percentages are starting to fall back down. The shots have stopped, which is a little bit concerning for sure. So it's a spot where I have Voronkov in one spot, and I was thinking about moving off of him pretty intensely. Basically, there's a lot of decisions to be made at this point in the season, especially if you actually really do need that win. In the end, I did decide to move off of Voronkov and get Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, who freed up my roster, is going to get me a couple of extra games played this week. So I kind of made a lateral move, I felt like, in terms of the player talent or point projection on the week, but it got me a couple of extra games played this week. So if you need games played and Voronkov is equivalent to somebody on the wire, then I think you're fully within your rights, or whatever you want to call it, to make that move. But I think it's at least a conversation. He's still line 1 power play 1 at this point. So are you getting a line 1 power play 1 guy if you drop Voronkov? That's kind of the question for me. Drew Doughty, 2 assists in his last 5, playing 26 minutes a night, 144 shots per 60, 49th individual scoring chances for per 60, 24th Corsi for per 60, 39th in on-ice scoring chances for per 60. If Doughty didn't have such a good playoff schedule, it would be a lot easier to contemplate dropping him. But I don't think you can with the playoff schedule upcoming here. I mean, anything's possible. They only play 3 games, 0 off nights this week. So if you absolutely need something this week and he's not factoring into your lineup on some of these heavy nights, then yeah, maybe sure you could think about somebody other than Drew Doughty there. But assuming that he's, like your 4th D or something, you're probably pretty happy with Drew Doughty as your 4th D overall. And I think he should perform a little better in terms of the point production rest of season here. I'm not super concerned as of yet. All right, back to the comments. Chris is calling me a saint, which I will gladly accept. Josh loves me. I appreciate that as well. Lost Ones finally got some time to catch the live show. You are the gore. I appreciate that. And clarifies goat. Yeah. Appreciate that. PB Stars, not sure if Hyman made tonight's list. His metrics point to a strong finish to the season, similar to Timo Meyer. Hope you agree. He didn't make the list, but I don't mind throwing him in for a second to take a look at what we're seeing. He's got 3 goals, 4 points in his last 4, almost 24 minutes a night, 35th shots per 60, 27th individual scoring chances 4 per 60, 8th Corsi 4 per 60, and 7th in scoring chances 4 per 60. Yeah, the underlying underlying metrics looking really good over the last little bit. Is playing with Nugent Hopkins on the McDavid line as of tonight, so that's a good spot. Hopefully, I haven't actually checked. I could probably just do that. I have the technology, so I could probably check and see what the score situation is here. I see Nurse and Bouchard as the goal scorers, and we have assists from Stetcher, Draisaitl, McDavid, and Draisaitl again. So nothing yet for Hyman tonight, but yeah, those kind of minutes, the underlying metrics being really good. Yeah, liking the strong finish to the season, I would project that as well. On the same train of thought as Timo, do you think this Hughes injury negatively affects Bratt, or now being with Timo and Nico allows him to maintain production? So yeah, in the last game he wasn't with them, and so that is a pretty huge negative going from Jack Hughes to Andre Palat and Dawson Mercer. Yeah, it will only negatively affect Bratt for sure. In my mind, even playing with, even if he was playing line one, I guess you'd call it, with Hischier and Meyer at even strength, and then playing on the top power play, as obviously he will be, I still think that's a bit of a downgrade. Him and Hughes were just really good together, so hard to view it as an upgrade in, or even a maintaining his previous pace. It would be hard for me to see that happening. Goodness. All right, Boldy, Meyer, Nichushkin, pick 2. Wow, that's an interesting one. If the playoff schedule is really a big concern for you, Minnesota. This week they were playing 3 games, 0 off nights, but next week 3 games, 2 off nights. The week after that, 4 games, 1 off night. Week 24, 4 games, 4 off nights. So if you need that, then Boldy is probably the guy. Nichushkin is definitely one of them. It's kind of just between Boldy and Meyer there. Tough decision for sure, and I wouldn't fault you for going either way. Boldy's underlying metrics continue to look fantastic. It's really just been getting pretty snake bitten, it feels like. Yeah, I think I would go Boldy and Nichushkin if I had to. Last ones, you think Dorofeev is worth a hold? At least for this week, because Vegas has 4 games played this week, only 1 off night. After that, when it's 3 games, 1 off night, 3 games, 1 off night, back-to-back weeks, that's when it's more of a conversation. But at least for this week, I think so. He's still got great underlying metrics, still doing the thing. You rock, Nate. I appreciate that. Duncan Priestley, drop B Jenner, pick up Will Cooley or Leo Carlson. Thanks. It depends a lot on what kind of league this is. Like Banger Cats, Will Cooley definitely does that. So I'd be going that route, especially for this week. Leo Carlson, if you need the off nights, makes some sense. I might prefer like Zegras, if Zegras is out there, to Carlson personally, but definitely up for debate. Josh Mayer, Cousins or Batherson. I'm assuming you mean Cousins, Dylan Cousins, not Nick Cousins. I would go Batherson there, hands down. Burns or Riley, rest of season, 12 points, off nights don't matter, no riffs. I don't like either of these options. I will go Riley, though. Matt Norris, Raquel, or Marchment, rest of season. I think you got to go Raquel there. He has slowed down, but yeah, I just don't know what Marchment's going to get rest of season. He might have a pop-off week here. I mean, I will say this. If you're going into a bye situation and you've only got to worry about weeks 23 and 24, then Dallas plays 4 games, 2 off nights in each of those 2 weeks. So that would be pretty nice. But you got to get there, and Pittsburgh has a not great but not terrible schedule, I guess. So yeah, all things being equal, I would go Raquel. CG says thanks. Josh asks Stone or Lehkonen. In most cases, I'll go Mark Stone there. CG agrees. All right, back to the list we go. Logan Stankoven, 1 goal, 1 assist, 2 points in his last 4. Obviously, joins Carolina, scores a power play goal in his first game there. I really do think this is a good fit for Logan Stankoven, but he is probably going to get moved around the lineup a lot with Rod Brind'Amour being his coach now. I think that he can be better than he was in Dallas, which, I mean, it isn't saying a lot because he was even getting scratched sometimes in Dallas. But, 16 minutes a night, what can Logan Stankoven do with that kind of deployment? Probably depends on him getting power play 1, but that would be my baseline expectation, that he should get power play 1. If he doesn't, then he's a drop immediately. If he does, and he's getting about 16 minutes a night, then I think he can be like a 55-ish point guy rest of the season. I think that's within the wheelhouse for Logan Stankoven. Josh Norris, 1 goal, 1 assist, 2 points in his last four, 18 minutes a night. I think he got 21 minutes in the very first game. I'm actually going to check the lines because they're playing right now. Yeah, he's playing with Paterka and Thompson on the top line, so that's ideal for Josh Norris. He was, also in practice on the top power play, so that's pretty good. His shots had just totally tanked with Ottawa. His underlying, everything basically for Josh Norris was truly terrible in the underlying stats with Ottawa. So hopefully, just getting a chance to be one of the guys, one of the true top end guys in Buffalo really does something for him here. It sounds like he's going to get big minutes and hope that really sparks something here. I am pretty interested, especially given the playoff schedule. Boone Jenner, 6 assists, no goals in his last 5 games, just under 17 minutes average time on ice, 51st shots per 60, 132 individual scoring chances for per 60, 67th Corsi for per 60, 62nd on ice scoring chances for per 60. Boone Jenner in a Bangers Cats probably makes sense because he's going to hit, he's going to block, he's going to do stuff like that. But in your average points league, being a line 2 power play 2 guy in Columbus, I just don't think that there's going to be enough to keep him above being a streamer. Like Columbus, obviously not a great schedule this week. So if you had Boone Jenner, I would think about dropping him this week and getting a bunch of players on off nights if that helps you get more games played. Definitely something to consider with Boone Jenner. I don't think you have to hold him in a points setup just because of the name brand. Luke Hughes has 4 assists in his last 5, played over 24 minutes a night. The underlying metrics are not terrific. Just a guy who doesn't shoot a lot, so there is that. He's got a great week 23 schedule. The rest of it is not that great. He is definitely going to be power play 1 with Dougie Hamilton out as long as that lasts. So you can roster him for that reason. He's obviously much better in a points league. In Bangers Cats, he's very hard to roster because he basically doesn't hit or block. So that's my issue with Luke Hughes. But in a points league as a 4th D, I think he makes some sense. Alex Vlasic, speaking of 4th D, 1 goal, 2 assists, 3 points in his last 5, just under 24 minutes average time on ice, 155th in shots per 60, 176 individual scoring chances for per 60, 179 Corsi for per 60. Not good stuff. It is Chicago, so you can't expect too much. I like Vlasic. If you need a 50, maybe you got extra bench spots and you're really trying to optimize your off nights for the playoffs. Chicago in weeks 23 and 24 plays 3 games in each, but all 3 are off nights in each week. So that's a really nice stretch of schedule to get a bunch of off nights out of a guy like Alex Vlasic. I should just say the pickle like Blake does and leave it at that. I like that from Vlasic. I do think he's not going to be terrific, like maybe 45, maybe 50-point pace rest of season with big minutes. He's more of a 5th defenseman and kind of taking advantage of that schedule for me. If you don't need him as a 5th, then he's kind of just right on the edge, right on the bubble for me rest of season. Mason Lowry, just 1 goal, no assists in his last 5 games, playing 23 minutes a night, a titch under that. 36 shots per 60, 49th individual scoring chances for per 60, 86th in both Corsi for per 60 and on ice scoring chances for per 60. I actually still like Mason Lowry a fair bit. If you need him for week 22, then he's going to go 4 games, 2 off nights there. Week 23 down to 2 games, 1 off night. Then week 24 back up to 4 games, 1 off night. But I like the underlying stuff with Lowry here. It looks pretty solid. Had a great start in terms of the underlying metrics, and then it's cooled off a little bit since then. But I do think that he can get something done. Obviously, Boston has traded away Marchand, but he was injured, so that wasn't going to, boost Lowry's totals a whole lot here anyway. I think that I'm into Lowry as a 4th defenseman for the time being, and then we can reevaluate after week 22 when that 2-game week in week 23 rolls around. Oliver Bjorkstrand we have talked about, but 2 goals, 3 points in his last 4 games here. It's a good look for him to be on that top power play. I don't know that he's going to get insane minutes. Like in the first game, what was this? In the Boston game here, he plays 15-40. So, Yeah, it's a decent amount. With top power play, maybe that's a little bit higher. Maybe he's in the 16 and a half range, 17 range. And yeah, I mean, if he's getting those seam passes from Kucherov cross ice on the power play and he's banging those home, definitely a chance that Bjorkstrand could be something for a little bit here. But yeah, Tampa Bay this week doesn't have a great schedule, but next week it's pretty solid. Then we'd have to reevaluate because weeks 23 and 24, 3 games, 0 off nights for each of those 2 weeks. So um, feels like a bit more of a short term answer. And as long as he's on power play one, though, I am interested in Bjorkstrand. Barrett Hayton, 1 goal, 3 assists, 4 points in his last 5, just over 18 minutes average time on ice, 38th shots per 60, 12th individual scoring chances, 4 per 60, 22nd Corsi, 4 per 60, 29th in on ice scoring chances, 4 per 60. Yeah, Barrett Hayton has been doing the thing. It seems like he's a little inconsistent with it, but he has been pretty good overall. And he maintains his spot on the top power play, and then he's been centering Dylan Guenther on the second line for Utah, which is not a bad spot to be. It's just that they don't really have a third wheel for that line. It's been Alexander Kerfoot, which is not too hot. But Hayton and Guenther together can definitely get some stuff done. The underlying metrics look terrific. Utah has a terrific schedule this week, so at least for this week, you're running with Barrett Hayton. And then next week, we can talk about it with the 3 games, 0 off nights. But if you get a bye next week, then you're definitely keeping Hayton because Utah goes 4 games, 3 off nights in week 23. So keep that all in mind as well. Kirill Marchenko, just 1 goal, 1 assist, 2 points in his last 5 here. Still 19 minutes a night, 138 shots per 60, 212 individual scoring chances, 4 per 60, 161 on ice Corsi, 4 per 60, and 101 on ice scoring chances, 4 per 60. You couldn't pry Kirill Marchenko from my cold dead hands. He will be on my roster until the day I die. Next question. Mason McTavish, 4 games played here, but 3 goals and 6 points in it. Over 21 minutes average time on ice. 194th in shots per 60, but 46th in individual scoring chances, 4 per 60. 192 Corsi, 4 per 60. 168 on ice scoring chances, 4 per 60. McTavish has been doing the thing for a little bit here, and it's pretty exciting overall. He was playing with Sam Colangelo and Cutter Gauthier, but it's working. Colangelo had a couple goals in this game, one of them an empty netter, but interesting stuff. I find it hard to believe that it's going to continue, but the underlying numbers, at least the individual scoring chances for, give me some hope. And the 21 minutes a night is really exciting, obviously. So there is that to consider. I am trying to hold on to McTavish. Obviously, they have a great schedule this week: 4 games played, 3 off nights. Next week, only 3 games played, 1 off night, but then 3 games played, 3 off nights in weeks 23. So yeah, if you can get through next week, then it might be a spot where you can hold on to McTavish, but he might be just a guy, he might go cold again. It's still Anaheim, so you can't get too excited with any of these Anaheim guys. It feels like it could go away at any moment if the other line mates can't keep them afloat. That's definitely a possibility as well. So enjoy it while it lasts, but don't be afraid to let them go when it falls off. All right, let me see where we got to in the comments here. PB Stars, now that Ryan Donato is staying in Chicago, are you willing to keep riding this ride over other streaming options such as Zucker, McTavish, Jaden Schwartz? So Ryan Donato and Chicago in general. Chicago goes 3 games, 1 off night this week, 4 games, 1 off night next week, and then the 3-3, 3-3, and 3-3 in weeks 23 and 24 that I mentioned before. I really like that schedule, and so I think that's actually super valuable. Even if Donato goes a little colder, that's really quite valuable. Yeah, I think this is a spot where I'm holding Donato over those names, at least at the moment. If we get into, if he's not playing for you on any of the heavy nights over the next little bit, then that's at least concerning, and a spot where you might want to consider dropping him if there is somebody out there who will make a difference on your squad. Like McTavish this week potentially with the 3 off nights. If you need those off nights this week, then I don't think Donato is like a make or break your season kind of player, and there's a chance you could add him back even for weeks 23 and 24 or something like that. So definitely you have to apply it to your own situation, but it's a player that I'm trying to hang on to at the moment. CG throwing another like and subscribe in there. Appreciate you. Do you think Panthers will go 5 forwards on power play 1? It's possible. I believe they did it before, if I'm remembering correctly, but it didn't last very long. I just kind of doubt it. Seth Jones has run a power play for a long time. I don't see why they would really feel the need to keep going. The power play works no matter who's on it. It feels like so. I don't think they'll feel the need to go to a 5 forward power play, and so they probably won't. Any real value for Jones on my D in New York? Fox back soon. Fox could be back soon. There's not really a lot of info. They basically declined to give any kind of timeline, which is kind of weird. Yeah, I just really don't know. Same kind of question for Laura in Boston. McAvoy back soon? I don't think McAvoy is coming back, personally. I haven't seen anything to indicate that anything's changed there, so that's my take there. Chris says, kids' bedtime. Thanks, Nate. Catch the rest later. Appreciate you stopping by. Mr. C, OEL, Manson, or Ryan Lindgren this week, fighting to get into the playoffs. Get a couple scoring. Thanks. OEL. So Toronto plays 3 games, 1 off night this week. Manson has the 4 games played with 3 off nights. Ryan Lindgren plays. Oh yeah, obviously Colorado. Same situation. If the off nights make any difference to you, then you go with the Colorado player. If they don't, then you could consider Oliver Ekman-Larsson. I think I might just go Manson. He runs into assists like decently often, so I might hope that he runs into a couple of assists somehow. And obviously, he should provide you with some decent bangs. He does shoot at like a decent amount. I'm kind of feeling Josh Manson there, but OEL would be the other option, especially if you don't need any of the off nights. CG, did you get my message regarding merch? The caps are fire and I want one. Did you get my message? I said send me a DM and I'll send you a link and we'll get it done. DeRush, out of Hayton, McTavish, Terry, and Kuzmenko. Who would you drop for Donato and a Bangers Cats with face-off wins? Most concerned about winning week 22 right now. So yeah, Chicago does play 4 games that week. Los Angeles also plays 4 games. Hayton does not. So Hayton is probably the one that you're looking at. You could look at McTavish or Terry. Bangers Cats with face-off wins. Yeah, Terry doesn't hit, so there is that as well. He has less utility there. It's a good question because Mango doesn't hit either. Not at all. That is pretty tough. I think it would be, just given the format, it's probably between Terry and Kuzmenko, which feels weird to say, but I think that's correct. I think that I would probably drop Kuzmenko. Even if he's still on the top power play, I think I would still do it. Yeah, maybe that changes if he's getting a lot of it. Like if he's getting 2 extra games played over Terry that week, then maybe you drop Terry instead. If you don't need the face-offs, then maybe you drop McTavish instead of Terry. But yeah, that's the kind of process I'm going through mentally anyway. Is Wallman in a decent spot on Edmonton, or are we out of luck? I don't think we're out of luck. I want to see what it looks like when Ekholm is back. That's a good point that Blake made. But at least the early returns are not that bad. So I'm pretty interested to see how it goes from here. I think it could be a decent spot for Wallman. Probably a bit of a step down overall from, obviously power play 1 in San Jose. But if he's going to get 22 minutes in Edmonton, even without power play 1, that's probably better than 25 in San Jose with power play 1, to be quite honest with you. Josh Mayer, Jarvis or Stone? I'm going Stone there. CG agrees. Stonks, Tage, Monster Johnson, Thompson, or Sebastian. Your mom's a hoe. Aho. Sorry. Every fantasy hockey team name since Sebastian Aho came into the league. I'm going with Tage Thompson there. Better playoff schedule. Sign me up. What do you think of Kuzmenko's stream? Interesting. Yeah, I mentioned it earlier, but I am interested at least as long as he's on the top power play. We did this one already. Josh says Stone over Lehkonen, Jarvis, weeks 23 and 24. Vegas plays 3 games, 1 off night, 4 games, 1 off night. Yeah, still going Lehkonen. Keep 2 of 3. Oh, okay. Lehkonen, 3 games, 0 off nights, 4 games, 2 off nights versus Jarvis, which is 3 games, 2 off nights, 3 games, 2 off nights. I will go with Stone and Jarvis. Michael I'm not going to try to say your last name. Apologize for even thinking about it. 10-team goals, assists, shots on goal, hits, power play points by week 22, focusing on weeks 23 and 24. Would you consider moving off of any of Dobson, Carlson, Hughes, Velarde, Kyrou, Verhaeghe for any of Slavkovsky, Stamkos, Hayton, Rossi? Interesting question. I feel like Kyrou's been doing a little better lately. I don't really know what I'm basing that off of. Yeah, 27 shots per 60. The minutes are still not quite there. The goals haven't come, but shots are still there. Yeah, weird spot for sure. St. Louis is 3 games, 0 off nights on both of those weeks. I could convince myself that Stamkos is a better option than Kyrou in that scenario. Especially since Kyrou doesn't hit. I think that might be a move worth making. The other one to consider would be Verhaeghe, because he only plays 2 games in week 23. Does have 4 off nights between the 2 weeks, weeks 23 and 24. So that's at least debatable. I think I'm trying to get Stamkos on this team, and it's between Kyrou and Verhaeghe for who I would drop to make that happen. So, yeah, I think that's the final answer there. This question would change if you're talking about Quinn Hughes versus Luke Hughes. I think Luke Hughes in a 10-team league with shots on goal and hits, probably not worth hanging on to in my mind. He does play 4 games, 3 off nights, the first week 23, which is maybe the reason you're thinking about hanging on to him. I don't hate that, but if you can optimize your forwards to get more forward games, like if you can get Rossi in for 4 games, 1 off night, if you can get him in for all 4 games that week, then I'd definitely be a little bit more interested in that. Utah has the 4 games, 3 off nights, so Hayton looks good there. Montreal also plays 4 games if you need the Slavkovsky's hits. Like any of those might be better than having Luke Hughes there. Like, could you run 3D that week even if you're getting all the games from one of these other options? So yeah, I think Stamkos for one of Verhaeghe and Kyrou, whichever one makes the most sense for your situation. And then I would think about either Hayton or Rossi if you can get in for those games played in place of, if that is, Luke Hughes. Is Dougie done? It doesn't sound like he's done, but it's really questionable when he might be back or if that's even going to be in time for fantasy. It did mention it is Luke Hughes, so there we go. I don't know what to make of Dougie right now. It seems like he could be back, like maybe best case week 23, more likely week 24. So maybe not done, but you might have to survive without him to get there to have him be useful. So yeah, that seems like where we're at. Seems like OC may be shut down too. I think that's possible. Do you think it's definitely safe to drop Matthew Tkachuk and redraft somebody? Just drop McCann in my 16-man league. Yes, I do think it is safe. I don't think the cap works without, basically they had to put Tkachuk on LTIR to be able to make the Seth Jones trade. So I don't think they can bring him back until playoffs now. All right, I think we did it. We made it to the end of the list. I think that is going to be all that I've got for this episode. So hopefully I brought you some value. Helped you get a little bit better at Fantasy Hockey today. All the advanced stats you heard today came from Natural Stat Trick, which is a terrific free resource. Many thanks to the band there for supplying music for the podcast. Be sure to check out their Spotify as well. That's it, folks. Much love. See you in the playoffs.